Hello and welcome all to the show Madhu Decodes. This channel is all about bridging gaps for businesses and AI entrepreneurs. Today we have a very special guest, Michele Ryan. I'm very happy to have her on board. She's the Chief AI Officer of Integrated AI Solutions from America, and she's an author of few books. Today we're going to particularly focus on one of her recent books on AI about harnessing AI for the businesses, a business guide, and it's titled AI, the Great Equalizer. Thank you, Michele, for accepting my invite and coming to my show.
Thank you very much for inviting me. You do a great job. This is an exciting podcast to be on.
Thank you so much. And you are my first woman guest in this podcast as well. So I'm honored. Thank you so much. And I'm excited because we are going to actually ask a lot of questions what business owners normally have in their minds. And probably this will help the business owners and businesses erase some of their fears or questions. So I think that's going to be a great conversation today.
Okay, shoot, fire, go for it.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think you've titled the book AI, the Great Equalizer. That's an interesting title to have, because people do have a lot of fear about AI and they think, oh, maybe it's not for me or it's not for me yet. Let me wait till others explore and things like that. But you have titled it the Equalizer. What made you title it that way?
Well, first of all, the Great Equalizer, I didn't coin that phrase. It's kind of floats around in tech, and it particularly floating around quite a lot now, and various YouTube channels and blogs are using it to describe AI. So I thought it was a good frame of mind and a way to start, not just myself, but others, if they realize that it could potentially be an equalizer, maybe they'll pay a little more attention to it and not wait until they think the technology has matured. Because that path from that product life cycle that we've had with other technologies really doesn't apply, I don't think, to AI.
Okay, do you think so? Okay, that's a nice, interesting perspective. So, how do you think it's going to balance the power between somebody who's not adopted versus somebody who's adopting early adopters of AI?
Well, first of all, and I'd like to say this with an analogy, that way people kind of understand it better. I mean, I'm definitely in an age bracket that was around long before a computer sat on your desktop. So I think I've seen so many technologies come and go. What's different about AI is pretty much the fundamental basis of why and how it exists. So let me explain. One of the great things you can get from adopting AI is, for most industries, is that it's going to lower the barriers of entry, quite obviously. If small companies have access to the same tools that the big companies have and they can afford them, then that shifts really kind of the power of the industry. So, for example, in my country, in the United States, most people do most of their shopping at Walmart or Target or some discount huge mega store. And why do we do that? Because the prices are lower. Well, back in the day, you would go to like a mom and pop shop. Now, I lived in the UK and I shopped a lot at mom and pop shops, and the prices are a little bit higher. So why do these huge companies take over an entire market? Well, simply because they can buy in volume, right? And that lowers their prices. And they have a much lower profit margin. So that combination of things, being able to survive on a really low profit margin, means that you can order 10, 20, 100 times as much. And as a consumer, we are willing, generally speaking, to pay lower prices for a lot of things, products and services, and we are willing to give up quality sometimes. The thing that AI does is it means that little tiny company who could never compete with the lower prices at the big mega store or in the big service company can now, because they don't need the high volume to get those to get decent profit margins to compete. That's why it's brand new frontier for these smaller companies that are willing to adopt it. AI is not that expensive compared to other technologies. You do not need to own your own server farm. You do not need to do a lot. It's plug and play to a large extent. The other factor is that AI should be customizable or customized as opposed to being configured. So in the past, you would buy software and you had to pay somebody to configure it in order to really help your small business. But now most AI is, to some extent, is plug and play. But then it has minor tweaks to have real value. It has minor tweaks that customize just to you. So two companies in exactly the same industry are not going to have exactly the same AI. So because it helps you solve your problems and you don't have to adjust how you do things just based on the software that's out there or the solutions are out there. It works the other way around. So that's a huge change. Can't think of any other technology that's ever offered that before. So that's why I call it the Great Equalizer. And I hope that's exactly what happens in the future. Smaller companies with higher quality can compete with the mega operations out there who are producing lower quality in higher volumes.
That's interesting. That's interesting. See, that shift in the mindset that you have just spoken about, I don't think many people get it because I think people don't know what the real cost of AI is, and people may think it's very expensive. And I think you rightly pointed out a point where it's like plug and play for many people, right? You don't have to hire high tech developers or bigger teams with a lot of different roles in it. I think you're right. The softwares are all very much like plug and play, and you could pretty much customize it to whatever your company's needs are. So I think that is a great insight that you've shared, because I don't think many people understand the pricing of AI is as simple as you've just described. Yes, you're right. There are multiple tiers of AI. So there are enterprise levels, there are lower levels. Small businesses can take over, and I think that's a very big news or information that our viewers will actually benefit from. Thank you so much for bringing in that perspective, Michelle. I really appreciate that.
It's I was going to say it's part of like the educational process that I go through with every client I see. They all come in, especially people my age or older, they come in and they're like, oh, this is software, right? I'm buying software. I'm like, no, you're not buying software. That's the big hurdle. Oh, go ahead.
Please carry on. Please carry. You said they're not buying software, right? So what do you say to people when they ask you these things? What are they buying really then?
They're buying solutions.
Okay.
They're,
Okay.
they're
That's
buying
yeah.
solutions to their specific problems. So you could imagine walking in, well, if you remember walking into like a Best Buy back when Best Buy first opened, and they'd have racks and racks and racks of software, and you would find the software and you'd read the back of the box and say, okay, I think this will solve my problem. And you would pull it off the shelf and you would take it home and then try and figure out how to make it with your solve your problem. Now imagine going to a virtual store, looking at the racks and they're blank boxes that say one thing and they list problems. Oh, wait, there's my exact problem. And you pull it off the shelf and you take it home and you can customize it and tweak it and answer the questions that are unique for you and your company, and it will solve that problem.
That's amazing, Michelle. I feel like I'm walking into a library full of solutions, and you pick one that suits you with a exact catalog telling you how to use it. It's something like that. Visually, I think it's amazing to visualize that if there are AI
Yeah.
solutions completely lined up and you pick one that suits exactly how you can solve your problem. That's an amazing world to live in, really speaking.
Well, it's a woman's way of looking at it. You go to the store to buy clothes. You're not just randomly looking at clothes. You usually go to buy something specific. Like, I need an outfit for a specific occasion. The same with a
Yeah.
business. You buy AI because you have a problem you need to solve. And the rest of it, how you get there, doesn't matter. If it's in your budget and you think your people can adopt it, then that's the solution you should go for. And just keep in mind, I mean, I've been doing consulting for literally decades, and I'm not trying to push AI on any of my clients. In fact, I often make suggestions in workflow. I'm like, you don't need AI yet. What you need is to fix your workflow, because trying to automate a process that's not really working for them is not the answer. I spend a lot of time educating my clients and hope that they'll come back when they actually are ready.
Okay, that's nice actually. So that's a good segue into asking more questions what business owners might ask you, right? Can you give me a few examples of problem statements or apprehensions in people's minds when they want to adopt AI? What kind of questions normally come to you?
Well, of course, the most obvious question is AI is going to take my job. And my answer to that is kind of cynical, I guess, because my instinct is, well, if you're doing a job that AI can't, that any a robot can do, then maybe you should be doing a different job, in a sense that AI is only going to take away jobs that humans really shouldn't be doing. They shouldn't be bothering to do that. I've traveled the world. I've worked in all kinds of industries. So I remember being in Taiwan at a manufacturing company, and I was watching a guy standing in front of a conveyor belt with a clicker, and that was his job, counting. the number of products that passed in front of him. That was literally his job. And I was speaking to the owner of the company, and I was saying, well, why is that? Why do you have a person doing that? And he says, well, I need to cross check and just make sure that that's exactly how many products have come out. And when I talked to him about AI and all kinds of process improvement at the time. This is prior to AI. And I asked, well, if a machine could do that for you, would you be interested in that? He's like, yeah, this guy's smart. I would put him somewhere else, you know? So AI can replace human jobs. Honestly, it should reduce a company's headcount. Absolutely. If people are afraid of that, well, put it this way, it'll turn a lot of maybe entry-level workers into supervisors and managers because they will manage and supervise the AI doing the work for them. Because you really have to have an instinct and know your job really well. And I think there are a lot of employees, if they are literally pressing buttons and turning their mind off and just acting like robots, then it will elevate them. And because humans are smart people, we have all kinds of neurological processes and capabilities that machines can't quite do yet. I'm not saying they never will, but right now, what we really need are people who are willing to let AI do part of the part of the job they don't like, preferably, and then they can help improve it.
I think you rightly said it. Part of the job that people normally don't like, right? The monotonous, automatable, regular, mundane tasks that people generally don't want to do. And they can use that time and energy and brains for better purposes.
Yeah.
Exactly, I think. That's what people need to understand. That's a very good answer for someone who says, will AI take my job, Michelle?
Well, and I know it's kind of a rude thing to say, well, let it, surely you're capable of something more interesting to do.
Of
But
course.
that's the biggest question. And I guess the other two big questions, just to say briefly, would be they think they can't afford it because they're comparing it to other software. And AI is not other software. AI is more like platforms and collections of processes and connections. You can afford them. I've never met a business that is like, if you can pay an employee to do something, you can afford to hire an AI to do part of that job for a lot less than what you're paying a human for. It doesn't mean you replace the whole human. It means you take the parts of the human job that is repetitive or easy to replace, and you replace them, and then you put your humans on doing other things, doing more higher elevated things. So it doesn't cost more than paying a person is all I'm saying. In fact, the ROIs, are huge over time. It means that maybe next year you don't have to hire 5 new people just because you got 100 new clients. And that relationship is key, really. If you could 10x your customers, you could 10x your business, you could sell 10 times more than what you sell now. What's the number one thing you would have to do? And most people say, well, I mean, I'd have to hire more people. Well, what if you only had to hire a couple more people? At what point does it get really attractive? If I have 100 new customers and I have to hire one person, okay, you know what that math comes out to, however much a year that person is going to get paid. Now, what if that's just hiring one person and you could get 1 million more customers? I mean, that's the game changer that people
That
really need
is.
to realize is that it's not going to take jobs that a person should be doing, in my opinion. It's not going to cost as much as it's going to make for you in most cases. And I guess the third issue that comes up pretty often is security questions. I think people are just, oh, well, AI, I don't know. It's the same thing that happened when the internet came out. I mean, I remember back in the day, even myself, I didn't want to type my credit card in at all. I didn't want to buy anything online. And now I just like swipe my thumb across my phone and I've bought something. I don't even know what card it is. But
Yeah.
it's the same concept. AI is secure, it can be insecure the same way anything could be insecure. So in a company, you typically do wind up often owning your own code. You're not necessarily tied to outside third parties if you don't want to be. There are definitely things that we can do to protect that anyone who builds AI solutions will do to protect that. It's not any less secure than just being on the internet in general. And it's actually more secure in a lot of ways because many companies host it on their own platforms. So AI agents in particular. So it really isn't much to worry about.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. I think you've hit the nail, right? Because those are the three big problems: security, affordability, and the scalability is the biggest advantage, right? And if people understand that, I think that is a massive game changer. What do you think people should think about being ready for AI? How do they understand, or how do they measure themselves or their company and say, yes, I'm ready for an AI solution, or this particular solution is what I should be thinking about AI for?
That's a good question. And a lot of people, that's, even if they don't ask that, I think that's deep down inside kind of what they want to hear from you, from any AI consultant. So I'll start by saying that repeatability, think about what you're doing internally in your company and the workflows and the tasks that your people are doing. Anything that's very, very repetitive with very little change in nuance, that is probably something that can be looked at. So how much repeatable tasks are happening in your business? The data, what kind of data do you have? What shape is it in? Do you have data? Are you collecting data? Even if you're not using it, do you have it? Do you have access to it? And then for me personally, I think the third item should be curiosity. How excited is your team about learning more about what they do and really examining it? That's a huge thing I've noticed just in decades of working as a consultant in process improvement. You walk into a company and people are afraid that, they're afraid, of what it means to make this change. Change is scary, I think, for a lot of people. But if you have a team of people who are curious about how their job could be easier, I can work with people like that because it's not like, it's not like what we've seen
Yeah.
before. It's not like learning how to use new software. It's not like trying to figure out how to maneuver in a website. It's built around you. It's built based on what your tasks are. So the truth is, you just need to know your job, and a business owner needs to either have people in his company who know and really understand the nuances of the tasks that are being done, or is willing to let someone like me come in and figure that out and then map out a strategy that falls into like one, two, or three different levels that most people fall into.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you've raised, right? That's where people like you, like an AI consultant, comes in to consult for businesses if they have any questions in their mind. What do you think are the next steps they should do if they have a question in mind? What are the immediate next steps they should take?
Well, before I answer that, if I could segue into something that I can reference back to. From my experience, as I talked to AI, and prior to AI, it was other technologies, but AI in particular, there are like three ways to incorporate AI. So when I'm talking to a client, the first thing I'm trying to do is figure out where they are mentally, and therefore what could work for them. Because some AI consultants will come in and maybe they've already built like an AI agent for dental offices. So they go around to all the dental offices and say, hey, I have this agent I want to sell you. I don't take that approach at all. I do almost the opposite. I go in and I figure out where they are. There's kind of, like I mentioned a second ago, three different levels. So level one is the single use solution. That's the off the shelf box and the problem solving item in the box, right? So
Yeah.
there are tools that already exist that solve a lot of problems already. Now, when you take them off the shelf and you put them in your company, into your workflow, they will need some customization and you need to be able to customize it, not just configure it, because configuring means that you're limited. You're limited within the scopes of whoever programmed it. This is different. You're adjusting it at the program level, so based on your needs, and
Yeah.
that's why it's almost easier to have a consultant. It's just a lot faster and a lot cheaper. But that's a single use. Human being has to actually start it. So it's not going to run by itself. You have to physically press a button to start that action. The second
Okay.
level is, yeah, so and I can give you some examples in a minute. The second level is what they call AI agents. And it's just a term that really is kind of, if you look at it from a big picture, it's a bunch of those small single use tools, so to speak,
Yeah.
all strung together, right, under one
Yeah.
umbrella.
Yeah.
So that's an entire workflow. So that's like an accounting department that has to process their invoices, from
Yep.
AAP invoices. So they get an invoice from a vendor and they need to pay it. Well, there might be 20 different steps that the human is doing along the way. And if everything is in order, it can go in order, meaning that there's no problems with the invoice and the human looks at it and makes decisions, right? The human says,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I know that vendor. And then they go and they look up the PO and they say, okay, it matches the PO. And then they go to the next step and say, oh, okay, it's time to pay it. And then it goes to the next step. And all of those steps, and there might be 20 steps along the way, don't necessarily have to be done by a human. They have to be supervised by a human. A human needs to look at it, or an AI agent will run it through automatically. The second it comes in, it'll go all the way through the process, but it'll stop at whatever stop gaps the company wants to give it. They want a human to approve every invoice before it gets paid. That's common.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
they want it to show up on a report and have a human review the report. The most important thing is that you could put kind of like a train that has a sidetrack, right? You can put a
Yeah.
sidetrack on there that says, if it doesn't pass this stage, just spit it to a human. And so now your humans, instead of doing data entry in like 5 different systems and going through the 20 steps themselves, now they're just looking at the cases that weren't normal or that had a little problem along the way. That's why
Okay.
AI agents are really great.
Okay.
And then the
So
third
they
one,
can
of course,
automate almost 80% of the workflow and maybe 20% of intervention, you think?
well, I've seen it in varying percentages. I've seen
Okay.
companies that it's 99%, that
Fully
it does. And I've
automated.
seen companies that are only 10% because they have such complicated steps and they want humans to have eyes on it at certain steps. So it just
Okay.
depends on the company.
Okay.
And then the last one is just what a lot of people in the industry are now calling the AI first company or organization. And what they mean by that is companies that are committed to having lots of AI agents, maybe even on their own internal platform. And usually these are, well, not usually, often they are
Yeah.
enterprise level companies. So, and I've done a lot of work with really huge companies. So if they have like 50 different departments that each have a different function, each department can have their own set of AI agents. And then the executive team and the board of directors and the head finance people, whoever's in charge of all of the departments at that level, they can actually
Hmm.
have dashboards where they can see real time what's going on. And
Yeah.
instead of waiting for reports, instead of waiting for the end of the quarter, instead of waiting for whatever, it's just a huge amount of transparency if that's what the company wants. So those 3 levels, single use, AI agents, which are a group of singles, and AI first, which means a whole bunch of agents that are like your own robotic workforce for the tasks that nobody should be paid to. I mean, nobody should have to feel obligated to do if they're smarter than.
Oh, I see. I think maybe picking up some examples to for each one of those would really help. I'm thinking in my mind, call center, right, with multiple different calling agents or a manager or a team leader, all being agents. Would you describe that as an AI first solution, or is it not?
Well, an AI first solution would be if the whole company is committed to doing multiple AI agents, basically.
Okay. Okay.
That's kind of how I look at it. So let's start at the smaller end. Let's voice, let me think, sales and marketing is a good example. Let's say
This is the
you
single use you're talking about. You're giving an
single
example for a single use.
I was just trying to think of a really good single use. Actually, I think I'll use chatbot because I think people can
Mm-hmm.
relate. Okay, so you can buy a chatbot off the shelf now, so to speak. And what are you going to do with that chatbot? So you go to a website right now as a consumer and you see the little chat thing in the bottom right hand corner and you click on it because you have a question. Let's say it's a utility company and I got my bill and it was a little higher than it normally is. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw the statement and I'm still a little confused about it. Or a phone bill.
Yeah.
I got to see my usage on this. So in the past, you would log on to the website, you would drill down to find whatever it is you're looking for, and you would see the data. Maybe you don't understand it or you still have more questions. Now you
Mm-hmm.
can go to a chat bot and you can say, can you please tell me why my bill was so high this month or whatever? You ask it in normal human terms, exactly the same way you would ask a person, and you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get an answer that is not just a copy and paste from some database. I mean, remember when chatbots first came out and you would ask it a question and did was give you the exact same answer. They've gone to the help page and looked it up.
That's correct. It will spit out mostly some links and then it'll ask us to go
Yeah,
find
it was
answers.
horrible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I got frustrated and I would still have to call the company. So now
Of
we
course.
have AI have single use solutions that are like basically AI versions of chatbots that But the new chatbots are AI based and
Mm-hmm.
LLM based. So now
Yeah.
they're smart, or I don't want to say they're intelligent because they're still programmed, but they're programmed to listen to what you're asking for and to
Yeah.
try and interpret and use deductive reasoning, which are all things that pre-programmed chatbots couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
So a single use would be a voice, like a voice activated program, an LLM based chatbot where you can
Yeah.
talk to it. And even if you don't say it exactly how it is in the database, it can figure out what you want and it can ask you questions. Oh, do you mean
Mm.
this or that? Oh, okay. So you have a conversation with the chatbot. And
Yeah.
that takes care of a lot of frequently asked questions that honestly, that everyone tells me that most of their customer service is repetitive. They're asking the same questions,
Yes.
their password changed. They are asking a silly question they could have just Googled.
Yeah.
But you want your customers to feel special. So, of course, you can easily use a single use. Again, a human has to activate it, which means the customer, in this case, the customer has to ask a question in order for that single use AI to even get started.
Yeah.
So that's an example of an external single use AI solution.
Okay.
Internal one, and I don't know why nobody's really talking about this, but I hope people realize, I try to help people realize this. You can do the same thing internally. Think about all the people sitting in large companies, sitting in their cubicles who have questions about their own job. You can have an internal AI that has been trained on that job and for that company. And
Yeah.
so if someone has a question, they can go ask their chat GPT customized equivalents. They can just ask them, oh, I'm confused. Should I do this or should I do that? Oh, look at this one. This one is different. What should I do? So an internal um, a single use tool could be a Q&A or a chatbot associated with a very specific job
Oh, that
to
would be
help.
very nice. Very, very
Wouldn't it
nice.
be?
Yeah,
Nobody's
when you're actually
talking
stressed
about
and you
that.
don't know. Yeah, I've had these multiple times in my head. Oh, I have to fill this contract form. What do I do?
Yeah.
I mean, purchase order. Which number should I enter here? Those questions, right? Yeah.
Yeah, or you can use it for training, but you can also use it for more complicated things. It depends on the company. So those are single use items. So you can improve
Mm-hmm.
your efficiency tremendously, and you can improve your customer service tremendously with internal and external single use tools. AI agents, the next
AI
level,
agents. Yeah,
which
that's
we
an interesting one, I think, because I recently interviewed somebody for a voice AI agent. So now that you've given me an explanation of a single use agent, I'm quite not sure whether it's single use or the agent, the level two. So I'm going to wait till you share your second example to really evaluate where voice agents fit.
well, you're right, because voice agents can absolutely be both. If a voice agent is for a single problem and it's like pre-programmed or
Yeah.
like a chatbot that is drawing off of a knowledge base, okay? It hasn't been quote trained per se, it's just drawing data. That's definitely a single use. Voice agents can be both, I think.
Okay.
An AI agent, like I mentioned before about the accounting example, that was a lot of different steps. And maybe each step along the way was a single use or a micro use is really kind of what I usually refer them to. So voice agents are often part of a bunch of micro uses tied together is what's going to make them an AI agent. So I don't know a lot of voice agents that don't solve a pretty or aren't part of a more complex workflow. In most cases, they are, but I mean, they don't have to be. Like the one we just discussed, an internal one, but it has one purpose. That would be a single use. So let's talk about voice agents because they're pretty cool. I'm watching my 90-year-old father uh, play around with them. There was a time and I'm from old school as well, where
Okay.
I want to call a company. I want to talk to a person.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But now I'm actually, you know what? I'd rather talk to the AI because they're going to get it. They're going to figure me out. They're going to ask the right follow-ups to understand what I want. Whereas I'm arguing with a person who's like, no, you can't do that. No, I can. Listen, you're not hearing me. And I could lose my temper with a voice agent and they're not going to get
Yeah,
upset.
sometimes it depends on the person who's on the other end, what mood they are in, and what type of answers they are giving you as well. But I think the voice agent is going to be pleasant, right? It's going to be friendly and happy. if it's an agent.
Yeah. So there's a really good analogy of an AI agent or a voice agent that's part of an AI agent. So I guess it would be lead gen. I have mixed feelings about automated lead gens personally, but some businesses and some industries actually it makes sense for. So an AI agent for lead gen can do all kinds of things, right? So it can go out and it can look for new customers, potential new customers. Then it can qualify those new customers by asking them questions. And if they don't qualify, then they get one response. If they do qualify, then they get another. They can call them on the phone and have an initial conversation with them like, "Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm the voice agent for whatever company,
Yeah.
and we just chatted online, and I just want to clarify a couple things. Do you have a second?" And and if the person starts talking to it, then actually that is pretty darn helpful to both the person and the company, and it can further qualify them depending on what the goal is at the end of the call. If the goal is to get them to book or schedule something, and they've already indicated that they're interested in booking or scheduling, then yeah, a voice agent is great for that. And I think it would probably fall under AI agent because it's part of a process. It's not just all that it is. It's part of the whole string of events because after they hang up from the phone call, they'll have something has to is being booked and there'll be a follow-up
Yeah.
email that happens automatically. And then maybe the sales department gets a copy of it, you know,
Oh, yeah.
or
Okay.
it gets logged somewhere else. So all those extra steps that have to happen beyond the voice agent or not in the same voice agent software is probably the best way to look at it. If it goes
Okay.
outside of the voice agent software, then
Yeah.
it's an AI agent kind of by definition in the way at
Yeah.
least
I think what
I
you're describing to me is a agent with workflows attached to it, right? Multiple steps
uh-huh.
alongside the agent. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's at least that's how I look at it. I don't know how well defined it is yet, but it changes. Seems like it changes every month. Um,
Yeah.
so then the last example would be the AI first agency. So I've actually really had the pleasure of helping companies move into that space. Often they start with well, we can talk about ways to kind of go through that process. But to give you a really good example, I have a couple really good examples. I think I talk about this briefly in my book. I had a company that was a GIS company that I used to work with, and they reached out to me and they asked me, um, because I've worked a lot with private equity companies in the past. And they asked me before I put my company up for sale, what do you think my valuation would be, or what can I do to make myself look more attractive to private equity funds? Now, a private equity fund, in case you don't know, they run around and they leverage buyout small companies. So they own like an umbrella of 100 different companies, all in whatever industry it is. And they make their money after they buy out the company. They make their money by showing enormous and fast growth. That's the main way they make money. So they find a company, usually a mom and pop shop or a mom and pop service company that's getting ready to retire. They don't have any family to leave it to, and they want to sell. You know, they don't force it on anyone. They say, okay, we'll buy your company. They buy the company, it goes into the fund with everybody else, and then the new owners or the new people operating it have to show very fast immediate growth. So this GIS company wanted to be bought out, and they put their business on the market and came back with a not a great valuation. You know, this was a mom and pop husband and wife team that had had the company for 20 years, and they were almost retirement age, but they want to retire early, and they made a little over $1 million a year profit in their business. So it was a good little business, but it
Okay.
was never going to grow. I mean, the way they were working without hiring a lot of people, spending a lot of money, going into areas that they weren't particularly familiar with. When web applications started coming out, everyone was getting a web app. They didn't want to go down that route, etc. So they found themselves wanting to sell, but not being able to get the price that they really needed. And they asked me, what can we do to make us more attractive? So what could they do? They could go all in for AI and automate themselves and go from, like I think I mentioned before, one employee for every 100 customers they have. They could go from one employee for every 1,000 customers that they have. That
Nice.
and that they went all in on AI and not in an expensive way. They just did four or five. I guess it was closer to five AI agents, 4 AI agents and a couple single-use tools is what they did. And
Okay.
then they barely started using them. They started showing immediate results, like within
Wow.
months. And their ROI, it paid for itself like in like 3 months. It was incredible. And then they went to the PE fund companies and said, "Hey, do you want to buy me now?" And they took a look at the profit margin, which now they could handle so many more customers for for such a low overhead. And they're like,
Wow.
yeah, and they sold. I mean, they sold for 10 times, literally 10 times what they
Would
could have
have.
sold
Oh,
without it.
nice.
And they retired happily, and I'm still in touch with them right now.
Nice.
Yeah, and here's the interesting part: the people that bought them
Uh-huh.
turned using that technology actually have turned around and applied it to numerous other companies in their same umbrella. So they're making a fortune, and everybody's happy because the customers are getting treated better. The employees are getting treated better because they're doing more intelligent work and they're not, this is data processing kind of company. So you can
Okay.
imagine how grueling the day to day was for even the lowest level employee there. So anyway, that's one of
Okay.
my favorite examples because it worked
That
out
is a
so
very good one. I'm so surprised people are moving this fast as well because yeah,
well.
because I've seen people, half of them thinking, what should I really do? I mean, it's not for me, kind of a skepticism. But on the other spectrum, I think the other end of the spectrum, you see people like what you've just described. So that's amazing. I think people are vigilant to some of the AI solutions these days, and I think the early adopters are really going to benefit.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, that's exactly right. I don't know how
Yeah.
you don't benefit right now. It's going to get harder as time goes by, probably, but right now it's pretty easy. So why would you not do it?
Why would you not? Exactly. Michelle, I think you've got really good advice for businesses. How should they ease into adopting AI? Do you have any tips for them?
Well, first of all, I would ignore the hype
Yep.
because it can be overwhelming, actually. I would reach out to AI consultants because
Mm-hmm.
I've never met an AI consultant that won't give you a free meeting, you know?
Yeah.
So go get your free discovery meeting from whoever and get it from more than one person if you want to, because what you need is you need to find someone that listens to you and
Mm-hmm.
someone that isn't trying to push a pre-made solution on you. Now, that doesn't mean that they haven't done it before. It just means that, and I think I made an analogy earlier that there's kind of a low-hanging fruit, a low bar that some AI agents live at, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But I feel it's better to find someone who can adopt what they have and know how to do to your needs and not the other way around. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
The next question I would ask would be about ROI. How soon before it
Yeah.
pays for itself? So if a solution costs $1,000 and it pays for itself in 2 months, that doesn't sound so bad. No,
Yeah.
if a solution costs $10,000 and it pays for itself in a year and you don't have to hire someone, well, wait a second, you just made a fortune, because I'm assuming your employees make more than $10,000 a year. So ask them for ROI, and for that, they're going to have to ask you questions. So just be
Mm-hmm.
honest with, and they can calculate that pretty easily. And then I guess the last thing would be to find someone that understands your business. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really understands the business better than you do as far as workflow goes. Maybe they're an expert in a particular department, like accounting and finance or sales, or maybe they've done enough hundreds of different types of companies and hundreds of different types of industries, and they get it. So they know what questions to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
So finding the right person is step one. Now, how do you get involved in it? Start single use. Solve one problem. It won't cost you very much, and you'll know. After you
Yeah.
get it, you'll know, and right
Yeah.
away. I would also always ask for a money back guarantee. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if it's just a single person who's just stepping out into the
Yeah.
industry, that's okay. You can hire that guy. He'll learn as he goes. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that as long as you get what you need. The bottom line, I feel, is you want to feel smarter for having chosen AI and not dependent on it. So
Okay.
you want it to elevate you and your people, not just be another app you got to learn what buttons do I press to make it work.
Yeah.
It's got to open the doors so you can see inside of your own processes and your
Mm-hmm.
own workflows and make changes accordingly. So bottom line is, I think that AI should liberate you. It should liberate the businesses that use it. And if you don't feel liberated after the first single-use tool, or then either you don't have the right person, or maybe you're not ready for it after all. That's kind of
Yeah.
my perspective.
Yeah. Maybe they need to wait, watch before they get
Right.
confidence. Yeah.
Once you have a single-use tool, you can do a pilot program where you have maybe AI agent, a small, simple AI agent.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I've never met anyone that had an AI agent that worked great that didn't want to get another one and another.
Yeah.
You're gonna want them. And if it doesn't lighten your load, then somebody's doing something wrong. And it may not be the person you're working with. It might be internal. You may have a team that just can't can't handle it yet. It may require more
Okay.
training. May require. I've had to hold hands. I've had to go in and do workshops and
Mm-hmm.
make the employees feel like they're part of the solution, because these are the people who understand their jobs. If you have an AI agent or an AI consultant that comes in and installs the program and tells people how to use it without the buy-in from the people that are doing it, then
Then
it's
there's
not
no
going to
point.
succeed.
Yeah.
So get someone who's a good consultant, period,
Mm.
and will suggest AI to you, but might also suggest other forms of process improvement, because it's not the technology can do some amazing things, but it's
It's.
not the solution to every problem. People is
Mm-hmm.
what it's really about. It's not about the technology. It's about the people that it's supposed to be serving.
I think so too. I think so too. With open minded people, I think it works really better. Like you
Mhm.
said, I think when you convince the people that it is the solution for them and it's going to ease their pain, I think they will understand. Yeah. I'm going to also have to ask for my AI entrepreneurs or people who want to get into AI consulting.
Mhm.
What is the pathway they need to take, Michelle, to become someone like you? If they don't have years of experience,
Mhm.
they are people who are just starting, but they want to venture into what you're doing currently, something similar.
There's
What
two ways.
advice? Yeah.
Yeah, I do, because I've been consulting forever. So I have two different philosophies for that. The first is you take the tool philosophy. You become an expert in a single use tool or a simple AI agent solution that solves a very particular problems. Maybe it's dashboarding. Maybe you can
Hmm.
create dashboards off of Excel sheets that aren't connected. That's a big thing, because
Yeah.
in America, 90% of companies live on their Excel sheets. So,
Yeah.
and telling someone that they have to go out of Excel and use Google Sheets is a ridiculous. You can't tell someone that in this country. No, not in, like, it depends on the department, but generally speaking, you can't do that, because you've got 30 or 40 years now of muscle memory in all of the people that work on these spreadsheets. I mean, this is Excel is amazing. It can do enormous things that most people don't even
Think
realize.
of. Yeah.
Yeah. So telling anyone, that they can't use the tool that they've been using for a long time and have their whole staff trained on is not a really good approach. But you can look at that. You can look at what tools they're using and how can I use that tool and come up with AI solutions. For
Mm.
example, AI is now in Excel, by the way. I don't think a lot of people know how to use it. So if you start at
Mm.
the level of teaching yourself like one thing or one field or one industry or one department or one problem that you want to solve, whether it's through a single use or a small agent, start there. Make one for yourself. Make one for fun. If you're into lead gen and you want to do lead gen, I met a guy that really wanted to start his own AI consulting firm, and he wanted to focus on sales and marketing, and he had the idea, which is not uncommon now, but back then it wasn't as common, where he wanted people, if you own a website and people come to your website and they bounce away, how can you know who those people were and how do you contact them? Well, that's a big question and a good one. And the answer is, of course, that you set up a cookie and you ask them if they will accept the cookie. And if they do accept the cookie, in the rules and terms of that cookie acceptance, a lot of people, depending on what country you're in the US, there's only certain states you can do that in or can't do it in. If someone clicks yes to your cookie and the rules behind your cookie say they can share their IP address, guess what? You just got a way to email that person. There's a lot of steps to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get the IP address, but then you have to have an AI agent that can convert that from an IP address to connect it to a person. that you could eat. And then there's some ethical issues with that, depending on where you are. Like, are you sending spam? Is that definition of spam? Depends on what you do with that. But there are ways you can do it ethically, and ways that you can point people to lead magnets and other ways to get
Okay.
permission. So there are things you can do with that if you do it ethically, and if you have a good relationship with them because of that, you don't irritate people.
So
That's
basically, what you're saying is to become an AI consultant, they can start by learning one tool, one problem at a time to create solutions for a business owners and then go through that pathway to learn more. And that's
yeah.
how they become one of somebody like you, right? As a
That's
consultant.
yeah,
Okay.
that's knowing just enough, knowing as much as you can about one thing or one small umbrella of things
Yeah.
starts the conversation. Then so that's one way to do it. Doesn't mean you have to build everything, but you probably need to learn to build one thing so you get
Okay.
it. So you have a tacit understanding, you need to get it. And I would say the same thing about the other way in. The other way in is to go through the consulting path, which is actually the way I went in. I've been a
Okay.
contractor and a consultant forever, and it has nothing to do with AI. I advised people on all kinds of technologies,
Ah,
ERP
okay.
system. I mean, I've been doing that for years. So when AI came along, of course, the first thing I wanted to do was adopt it. So it's becoming an expert on process improvement in general, whether you pick a particular industry or particular department to know and understand the problems that are happening there. And if you do that, that's smart, because if it's something you've done, if you worked in that department before, then you already know the headaches and the
Yeah. Okay.
pipeline. So start with what you know from your day-to-day business and life, and then do a real wide search for AI solutions.
Okay. Okay.
And
That's a good tip. That's really a good tip. Yeah.
and then you can approach other people as, hi, I've also been an accountant for years and years, and I know what dealing with
How to
Excel and
solve
AI
problem.
is. And guess what? And that way you're not expected maybe to be an expert in all of the tech side of it. If you're nervous about that or not strong in that area, be a problem solver. And then I work, I'm supported by a whole network, some of the best
People.
AI developers in the world, about 250,000 of them, I'm part of a group that we all work off of each other. So when they need business help with talking to a customer or evaluating or doing an AI audit or things that are beyond their technical abilities, they come to me and I go to them if I need a solution that's beyond my technical abilities. So
That's
there are
nice. That's nice.
huge networks out there. Entrepreneurs wanting to get involved, you figure out which side you're on. Are you the techie person or are you the business person? And if you're neither, which one could you be?
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. I think those are very good insights. And you're exactly right. AI these days, you can't pick a book and learn. I think you need a network of people to help each other. And that's how people grow in AI, helping and knowing each other and networking mostly, right? Of different parts of the world as well. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on our show. And I'm sure we're going to have many more because you have like wealth of knowledge and we can dive deep into every bit of it. I think I'm sure we will have other topics and we can continue in other podcasts too. But I'm super excited to have the first female guest in this podcast. Thank you so much for bringing in such insightful, knowledgeful tips and tricks for businesses to adopt AI. I am sure they'll benefit from all the advice you've given them today, Michelle.
Thank you very much. You're a great host.